Okay, so we're clicking on the magic of Google Earth, and this is the world, but you knew that already. Now, if we zoom in and highlight a specific area of this wondrous place, we find, you guessed it, the United States of America. And over here, yes, over here on the left-hand side of this great country, we find colorful California. What we're interested in today is a small speck of land. Well, it's actually a peninsula called Palos Verdes. Through the miracle of today's technology, we move in even closer among the hills, canyons, and soaring vistas of Rancho Palos Verdes, as we highlight an iconic and perhaps legendary mansion and its equally iconic and legendary owner, Mrs. Ellen Vanderlip. This residence and the surroundings harken back to a time when Hollywood was truly golden, and when this was a location for many glitzy, ritzy parties and gatherings of the rich and famous. Mrs. Vanderlip has led an extraordinary life and met a vast array of equally extraordinary people, as she tells you herself, and as she describes it all in a riveting and fascinating book called Eccentric, Obstinate, and Fabulous. Talking to Mrs. Vanderlip, it's easy to see why those three descriptive words fit her to a tantalizing T. This is probably one of the most interesting pictures I've shown you in the segment entitled, Do You Know Where This Is? And in this particular instance, I'd like you to tell me what the country is and what part of the country this road is in. I'll give you a small hint. This caused the Allies one of the biggest problems in World War II. So the question is, do you know where this is? Mrs. Vanderlip, you told us that you're 89 years young. What do you attribute being able to still lead such an active life? How do you, what is the secret to living a long life?
Well, keep it interesting, travel a lot, and, I've done everything. For 21 years, I ran a French art conservation charity. That's how I was decorated by Chirac. And this is Arts and Letters, which is even harder to win.
What is the other one?
This one is the Legion of Honor.
My goodness.
And
isn't that a very rare?
There are very few American women who have it.
And you got that because? Because
I raised millions to restore art in peril in France. And the way I did it, I would go to a chateau, the owner would give us lunch or dinner, and I would take his ancestor portraits, which he couldn't afford to restore, and pay his half, which would release the government's half, and so we did twice as much because we helped private people who had great art but no funds, or little funds.
Now tell me, your name is Vanderlip, but you originally came from Norway. What decided you to come to America?
Well, I was very young. I was 14 when I came from. My father had studied for 9 years in Berlin, and he was a doctor, civil engineer, and had invented the laminated rafter. You glue a lot.
Right.
Yeah. And he had a huge lumber yard, and it burnt up, and so we moved to Berlin. And then his German classmates sent him to Tennessee to build rayon plants, the first artificial silk. And so I learned English with a Tennessee accent. I now speak 7 languages. But I'm cheating a little because if you're Norwegian, you can speak Swedish and Danish pretty well.
When you came to America, you met your first husband. Who was your first husband?
Clayton Vanderlip, but I didn't meet him until I was 27 years old, and or 29, 27. And actually, Sterling Hayden had walked into the Norwegian embassy where I was working.
Sterling Hayden, the famous American actor?
I was engaged to him.
You were?
Yeah.
Whoa!
Well, he was communist that summer, but what he said was, I would like to buy the Tordenskjold, that's a sailing ship, four-masted, in Trondheim, as you would call it, and and take you to lunch. And I said, if you'll sit over there, I'll see if the commercial counselor can see you. And so he left quite put down, you see. But that night I had been invited on board the Sequoia, the president's yacht, by a congressman's daughter for dinner. And who should walk aboard with Sterling? And he was gung-ho, and he took me up to meet his mother in Connecticut.
Did you know who he was?
Well, you could see it. My God, in a Marine uniform, he was beautiful. But he wasn't for me. I mean, actually, Sterling, with Madeleine Carroll, had rented and lived in this house before I ever came here.
Wow.
That's because the Vanderlip's real estate agent was from Hollywood. So Myrna Loy lived in this house with Arthur Hornblow, and Madeleine Carroll lived here with Sterling. And after my husband died, he came around again, and he had 4 children by this woman. They'd lived down at the yacht club.
I understand from my research that you talk about Hollywood. People like Lana Turner and Clark Gable came here. I mean, were there lots of sort of parties? Was that in your era too?
Well, with Mr. Katz, when you read my book, you'll see that I have had here Peter O'Toole, Peter Sellers, and Peter Ustinov.
Let me ask you, this particular book here called Eccentric, Obstinate, and Fabulous, a memoir from Lingen, Norway to Palos Verdes, California by Clayton Vanderlip. What was it that got you to write this book?
My children. I have a son who is now 60. They're in that painting over there. And I have and he's in London, a computer genius. And then I have a daughter, Narcissa, named for her grandmother, who is active in USC and theater and musicals and what have you. And then I have twins. And Henrik, my twin son, is a multi-millionaire with a house in Aspen and a yacht in Tortola, or 3 yachts it is. And his sister, Katrina, married a French nobleman named Charles de Carbonel. And he went crazy and bankrupt and everything else. And now she's got a new beau called Edwin Perlberg, who flies her first class to his house in Lyford Cay in the Bahamas.
I understand that Charles Lawton also lived here?
Yes, he bought 9 acres adjoining the first driveway in as you go down. And we became great friends, and every Monday night he came and read to me until 3 in the morning.
Charles Lawton read to you?
Oh yeah, he was practicing the Bible, Dickens, Shaw, Shakespeare. I got a lot of culture from him.
With all these motion picture celebrities, were you ever interested in that side of show business?
No. Oh, I can't even, no.
No?